They looked solemn, stoic faces carved in calm, unshaken by storms that would have broken lesser souls. To the untrained eye, they seemed almost indifferent, untouched by joy. Yet beneath that quiet exterior lay a happiness deeper than euphoria, steadier than pleasure, and freer than desire. The Stoics never chased happiness because they understood something we've forgotten. The more you chase it, the further it runs. They mastered the art of being instead of becoming, a lesson our modern world is desperate to remember. In this episode, we revisit the philosophy that has shaped much of our extreme minimalism journey, but this time, through the Stoic lens of happiness. We've spoken of owning less and living intentionally, but today, we'll explore how the Stoics went even further, stripping away not just possessions, but the illusion of control itself. From Marcus Aurelius' quiet reflections in a war tent to Seneca's serene letters written in chaos, we'll uncover how true happiness is found not in pursuit, but in presence. A kind of freedom so light, even the world's noise can't weigh it down. They say the Stoics looked cold, emotionless even, but that calmness wasn't absence, it was mastery. The Stoics didn't suppress emotion, they refined it. In a world drunk on stimulation, they stood sober, quietly observing the chaos of human wanting. For them, happiness was never something to be acquired, for acquisition meant dependency, and dependency was a form of servitude. The modern world tells us happiness lies in the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next affirmation. But the Stoics saw this centuries ago. They understood that when you tie your joy to things beyond your control, a raise, approval, the weather, the behavior of others, you place your peace in the hands of chance. Seneca once wrote that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Those words are not poetic idealism. They are radical minimalism for the mind. Imagine a mind so still it does not tremble when life withdraws its gifts. That was the Stoic condition. Their happiness came not from the abundance of experience, but from the freedom of detachment, the same essence that underpins extreme minimalism. We have revisited this concept many times, but today we return to it with new eyes, to see how emotional clutter can weigh heavier than material clutter ever could. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about accepting life as it unfolds, he wasn't preaching submission. He was describing the art of living light, the kind of freedom that comes when one stops bargaining with reality. Modern minds chase happiness like a transaction. If I do this, if I get that, then I'll be content. But the Stoics knew that contentment is not the prize at the end of striving. It is the space that appears when striving dissolves. Extreme minimalism, at its truest, isn't about empty rooms. It's about emptying the need for constant emotional highs. The Stoics achieved what we're still struggling to define, a quiet joy untouched by success or failure. They didn't chase happiness because they understood that the pursuit itself was the chain. By detaching from it, they found something purer, the calm center that cannot be taken away. And so, when the Stoics freed themselves from the chase, they did not stop there. They turned inward, to what they called the ruling center, the seat of all thought and intention. For them, simplicity wasn't just an outer expression, it was an internal discipline, a voluntary simplicity of the soul. In our modern language, we might call it mental minimalism, but for the Stoics, it was far more sacred than a mindset. It was a practice of alignment, a daily cleansing of thoughts that no longer served their higher purpose. Epictetus, once a slave, spoke of freedom not as the absence of chains, but as the mastery of one's desires. He said that we are bound not by circumstances, but by our judgments about them. This is the essence of Stoic freedom, the inner uncluttering of everything unnecessary: resentment, envy, comparison, indulgence in what-ifs. In a sense, the Stoics were the earliest practitioners of what we now call extreme minimalism. But theirs wasn't about walls or wardrobes. It was about the furniture of the mind. They rearranged their inner world until only what mattered remained: virtue, reason, gratitude, and peace. Seneca urged his readers to test themselves often by living simply, even when wealth was available, to wear coarse clothing, eat plain meals, and remind the spirit that comfort is a luxury, not a need. This was not punishment but preparation, a strengthening of the soul through voluntary simplicity. It taught them resilience, but more importantly, it taught them serenity. By choosing less, they discovered more of themselves. In our time, where comfort is abundant but peace is scarce, this Stoic practice feels revolutionary. We insulate ourselves with conveniences, yet our hearts grow restless. The Stoics found happiness precisely because they learned to live light, to hold nothing too tightly, not even comfort itself. They simplified not for aesthetic, but for freedom. And in that simplicity, happiness emerged quietly, like sunlight filtering through an uncluttered room. And from that uncluttered space within, the Stoics stepped gently into the world, not to escape it, but to engage with it more fully. For they believed that every ordinary moment, when met with awareness and purpose, could become a sacred act. To them, philosophy wasn't confined to scrolls and lectures. It was something lived, breathed, and woven into the smallest details of existence. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, found divinity not in temples or grand ceremonies, but in the simple act of rising each morning. He wrote that even the mundane tasks, eating, walking, conversing, could be performed with reverence if done with virtue and intention. This was his quiet rebellion against chaos, to live so consciously that no moment was wasted in mindless haste. It was Stoic mindfulness before the word ever existed, an art of sacred simplicity where being present became the truest form of prayer. In today's world, our hours vanish into screens, errands, and endless obligations. We chase meaning in monumental experiences, forgetting that the most transformative wisdom often hides in the repetition of daily life. The Stoics would tell us, wash the cup, fold the cloth, breathe deeply, and do it as though the universe watches through your hands. For them, peace was never a destination. It was an unfolding within the task at hand. By slowing down enough to honor each act, they infused ordinary life with a quiet kind of holiness. It was not minimalism for the sake of reduction, but for revelation, stripping away the noise until the sacred nature of simplicity revealed itself. Every breath, every gesture, every dawn became a reminder that a meaningful life does not need more, it needs attention. And so, from that sacred stillness of everyday reverence, the Stoics moved toward one of life's hardest lessons: how to care deeply without being consumed, to live fully, yet remain free. For the Stoics understood that the world was not ours to command, only ours to participate in with grace. They saw life as a vast river, and themselves as travelers upon it, steering where they could, but never resisting the current's flow. Epictetus, once a slave, later a teacher, spoke of the subtle art of detachment, not the cold withdrawal of the heart, but the wise understanding of limits. He said that our peace depends not on possessing or controlling, but on discerning what belongs to us and what never did. The Stoic does not refuse love, nor friendship, nor ambition. Instead, they love more purely because they do not cling. They act more effectively because they do not despair when outcomes escape their grasp. In our modern world, where attachment is often mistaken for care, this wisdom feels almost radical. We tie our happiness to people, possessions, and praise, fearing that without them, life would lose meaning. But the Stoic would gently remind us, it is not indifference that frees us, but perspective. To detach is not to stop feeling, it is to feel without drowning, to care without collapsing. When we understand that everything we hold is borrowed, time, relationships, even health, we begin to engage with life more tenderly. Every encounter becomes precious precisely because it is impermanent. Detachment, then, becomes a higher form of love, one that asks nothing in return but the chance to be present, to give, and to let go with dignity. It is in this quiet balance, between involvement and acceptance, that the Stoics found their deepest tranquility, a serenity born not of escape, but of understanding. And from that delicate harmony of caring without clinging, the Stoics turned inward, toward the fortress that could never fall, the inner citadel. To them, this was not a metaphor, but a living sanctuary within each soul, built stone by stone through reflection, discipline, and acceptance. Marcus Aurelius spoke often of this place, that inner stronghold where, even as empires trembled and tempests raged, a person could stand unbroken, serene, and sovereign. To live in the world, the Stoics believed, was to face its storms, the losses, the chaos, the noise that presses against the mind. Yet, within each of us lies a space untouched by it all. The outer world may shift, crumble, or betray, but within, there exists a quiet certainty, the power to choose how we respond. This was the essence of Stoic freedom, not the freedom to control events, but the freedom to remain whole despite them. In that inner citadel, fear loses its dominion. There, anxiety cannot command the mind, and anger cannot corrupt the heart. It is a place of clarity, where values, not circumstances, dictate action. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature, not the wild forests or the seas, but the nature of the rational, virtuous self. To dwell here is to understand that peace is not given by the world. It is cultivated through alignment with truth and restraint. And perhaps this is the most enduring lesson they left us, that amid our modern chaos, the search for peace need not lead us to distant mountains or silent retreats. It begins the moment we return to ourselves, to that timeless sanctuary that no noise can penetrate. The Stoics did not flee from life. They fortified the soul to meet it. For in the end, every path of simplicity, detachment, and awareness leads back to this, the inner citadel, where the wise reside in quiet strength, unmoved yet deeply alive. It is here that true freedom blooms, not as escape from the world, but as mastery of the self, the calm eye in the storm, watching with love, with clarity, and with unshakable grace. And so, as the echoes of Stoic wisdom fade gently into the silence, we are left with a simple yet profound truth, that peace was never something to be found out there, but remembered within. The Stoics, through centuries of reflection, showed us that freedom begins not when the world slows down, but when we do. When we choose simplicity over excess, understanding over reaction, and stillness over noise. Every teaching, every story, every reflection you've heard is but an invitation to walk lighter, think deeper, and live more deliberately. For the Stoic path is not a single road, but a widening circle that keeps drawing you closer to your own essence. If this journey spoke to you, let it not end here. There are more paths waiting, stories of resilience, simplicity, and quiet revolution. Explore the other playlists on this channel. Wander through Microtopia, where minimalism meets the art of contentment, or step into the hollow era, a reflection on rediscovering meaning in an age of excess. Each video unfolds a new way of seeing the same world, slower, wiser, and more alive. Continue your journey. Watch, reflect, and let each story be a mirror guiding you back home, to that timeless inner citadel where your truest self resides.